The sun hung low over the dense pines as Dr. Jonathan Miller steered his dusty SUV into Ravenwood, a town that seemed ripped from the pages of a forgotten history. His wife, Sarah, gazed skeptically at the peeling paint of the storefronts, while their children, Emily and Max, pressed their faces against the windows, eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and unease. Jonathan's heart quickened. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and something else. Something ancient. He had chased rumors across continents, but the whispers about Ravenwood were different. People vanished here, tourists, researchers, gone without a trace. Yet, instead of deterring him, the mystery beckoned like a siren's call. As they pulled up to the creaking inn at the town center, a group of locals paused their conversation, their eyes tracing the new arrivals with an inscrutable gaze. That evening, over a modest meal in the dimly lit inn, Jonathan unfolded a map scribbled with notes and symbols. This area was once sacred ground for the Algonquin tribes, he explained, his finger tracing a circle around Ravenwood. Emily rolled her eyes, retreating behind her headphones, while Max leaned in, entranced. Sarah sipped her tea, eyes flickering between her husband and the shadows dancing along the walls. "Maybe we should explore together tomorrow," she suggested, her voice tinged with hope. Jonathan nodded absently, his mind already deep within the forests. Outside, a faint chant drifted through the cool night air, unnoticed by all but Max, who shivered despite himself. Upstairs, as sleep claimed them one by one, a silhouette lingered beneath a street lamp, watching their window with hollow eyes. The next morning, the family ventured into the woods, the canopy above weaving a tapestry of light and shadow. Birds called out warnings as they delved deeper, following a trail barely visible beneath the undergrowth. Jonathan felt alive, every nerve electrified. "Stay close," he murmured, though his strides widened with each step. Sarah lagged behind, pulling twigs from Max's hair, while Emily snapped photos, the clicks echoing like distant footsteps. Suddenly, the trees opened into a clearing, and there it stood, a monolith of obsidian stone, draped in vines and crowned with bones bleached white by time. Spinal vertebrae, meticulously arranged, spiraled around the altar. "My God," Jonathan breathed, approaching with reverent awe. A sense of dread gnawed at Sarah. "We should go, now," she urged, but her plea fell on deaf ears. As Jonathan reached out to touch the altar, a whisper rustled through the clearing. A language older than the roots beneath their feet. Night fell swiftly upon Ravenwood, casting the town into an abyss of shadows. Back at the inn, Jonathan pored over his findings, pages of notes scattered across the bed. "It's a convergence point," he muttered, "a place where the veil between worlds thins." Sarah's patience waned. "Listen to yourself. This isn't just about you anymore. The kids are scared." From the hallway, a lullaby floated softly, sung in a voice that was both tender and chilling. Sarah peeked out to find Emily standing rigid, eyes closed, whispering the haunting melody. "Emily!" Sarah's voice cracked, but the girl remained still until, abruptly, the song ceased, and she collapsed into her mother's arms, unable to recall how she got there. Fear tightened its grip around the family. Jonathan's pursuit had awakened something, and it had taken notice of them. Desperation drove Jonathan back into the woods alone. The altar beckoned, its presence a constant thrumming in his skull. Clutching a bundle of hastily assembled equipment, he navigated the labyrinthine paths by memory. The forest seemed alive, branches clawing at his clothes, roots snaring his feet. Reaching the clearing, he set up cameras and sensors, determined to capture evidence. Hours passed, the silence broken only by his ragged breaths. Then, as the moon reached its zenith, figures emerged from the darkness. Townspeople draped in cloaks, eyes reflecting the pale light. They formed a circle around the altar, their low chants harmonizing with the rustling leaves. Horror paralyzed Jonathan as he saw his own children step forward, faces void of emotion. "Join us," they intoned in unison. The realization hit him like icy water. The town hadn't hidden the disappearances. They had facilitated them. "Release them!" Jonathan shouted, charging forward, but unseen forces halted his steps. The chants grew louder, the ground beneath him pulsating. Sarah appeared beside the children, her eyes glazed yet filled with tears. "It's too late," she whispered. "You opened the door." The townspeople's voices melded into a cacophony as the altar began to glow, the bones rearranging themselves into grotesque forms. Spectral hands reached out, grasping at the fabric of reality. Jonathan's mind raced. This was a ritual, a summoning. He had been the catalyst. Summoning all his will, he recalled the ancient symbols and words he'd studied. With a defiant cry, he recited a banishing incantation. The ethereal hands recoiled, the glow dimming. For a moment, silence reigned, but the silence shattered as the townspeople screamed, their forms contorting. The entity, denied its passage, demanded recompense. Shadows swirled, engulfing the villagers one by one. "Dad!" Max's voice cut through the chaos. Jonathan reached out, their fingers barely touching before Max was pulled back. Sacrifices were needed to seal the rift, blood for blood. Realizing what must be done, Jonathan locked eyes with Sarah. A silent understanding passed between them. Summoning the last of his strength, he redirected the dark energy towards himself. Agony tore through his body, but the hold on his family loosened. The entity accepted his offering. As darkness consumed him, he glimpsed Sarah rushing to the children, pulling them away from the dissipating altar. Dawn broke over Ravenwood, the first rays of light piercing the gloom. The townspeople were gone, leaving behind empty streets and echoing silence. Sarah, Emily, and Max stood at the edge of the forest, the memories of the night a blur of terror and sacrifice. Tears streamed down their faces as they whispered their final goodbyes to Jonathan. They piled into the SUV, the weight of grief heavy, but mingled with the faint relief of survival. As they drove away, a figure watched from the tree line. A man, or what was left of one, bound eternally to the place where worlds converged. Dr. Jonathan Miller had become both guardian and prisoner, a sentinel against the darkness he had unwittingly unleashed. Unknown to them, miles away, another traveler unfolded a map marked with Ravenwood's name. A whisper reached out from the shadows, ancient and insistent. The cycle would begin anew. The town remained, a beacon for the curious and the lost, waiting patiently for the next soul enticed by the allure of its unfathomable mysteries. And deep within the forest, the black altar stood silent, yet hungry, adorned now with one more spine, a testament to the thin line between discovery and doom.